Part 11. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 104. Tell me what you think of. Under Tyruya's encouraging eyes, Lilu perfected the plan in her mind and stated it to the vice president who trusted her. That's what I thought originally. There is nothing wrong with Rilu's proposal. Whether it can be implemented will depend on how far Tyruya can perform it. Wide area detection magic can only know how many people are within the range. If you are lucky, you can also find your own people who have escaped. Lilu, this idea is not wrong, but sure enough, this method would be too much of a burden for Senior Tyruya. It's not Tyruya's fault, even a mentor can't easily maintain his energy after using this kind of magic. If I do as you say, I will definitely expose my position, but you can still move freely. However, there is one more thing. Tyruya's hesitation was not because he was worried about his own safety. There is no way to guarantee that there will be other people have also escaped. If things are not as optimistic as we imagined, you will be the only one who can take action. Doesn't that matter? Even if I am alone, I will find a way to rescue everyone. As long as I don't get caught. Lilu knew very well that this was just her own show of bravery. If Tyruya is gone, no matter what I do by myself, it will be a drop in the bucket. However, she pinned all her hopes on that 1 in 10,000 possibility. Her cautious character does not belong to her. If there is any possibility that arises when she is desperate, she will not hesitate to gamble on it. Do not move. Suddenly, Tyruya grabbed her shoulders with both hands and whispered a warning in her ear. Different from her usual gentle force, Lilu, who was completely unresponsive, was roughly pushed to the ground by her, and Tyruya herself pressed on top of Lilu, who was lying on her back. Tyruya, senpai. Do not talk. Tyruya pressed Lilu's hands, and the warm breath she exhaled made Lilu's earlobes feel itchy. There was no time left for Lilu to be shy, as the footsteps on the stone bricks approached the bushes where the two of them were hiding. The tension suddenly rose, and Lilu couldn't even tell what caused her heartbeat to become so fast. The footsteps approaching from far away did not stop, and at the same time, the sound of two men talking could be heard. Shouldn't he have escaped outside the academy? We have put enough people to guard the entrance. It is impossible to climb over the wall. Those 4 people should still be somewhere in the academy. The sound of footsteps grew closer and farther away, and the sound of conversations gradually became inaudible. Go away. It seems so. I thought my position would be exposed now. Tyruya was careful not to touch the bushes and make unnecessary noise, and moved away from Lilu's curled up body. Lilu sat up with her hands on the ground, and her ears could be seen red under the night light. I was scared to death. I thought that Senior Tyruya wanted to be with me before we parted ways. Huh? What did you just say? No, I didn't say anything. Keep your voice down, they haven't gone far yet. Sorry. The two continued to squat in the bushes for a while. During this time, Tyruya had already made the decision on Lilu's behalf. I heard you right, they just said 4 people, right? She confirmed to Lilu that this would become a prerequisite for the execution of the operation. That's what I heard. Then it's at least certain that besides us, there are 2 other people hiding in the school building. After confirming that the prerequisites were correct, Tyruya told Lilu her thoughts. This plan is to modify the idea originally proposed by Lilu and finally become implementable. Tyruya thanked Lilu silently in her heart. Let me sort out your incoherent words first. Lilu, who was looking downstairs unprepared, almost screamed out with excitement when she found Akatsuki and Ika sneaking out to pick her up at the door. She held back her voice when she saw the 2 waving their hands and feet to stop them. Not sure that no one was following Lilu, Xiao simply checked that there was no one else ambushing around, and immediately took Lilu, who looked confused, into the hidden classroom. Tailua exposed her location because she used wide area detection magic. Then she discovered the signal I left in the flower bed of the teaching building, so she asked you to come to us alone. Is that so? Lilu, who had just hid in the classroom, didn't even have time to take a breath, and immediately told the two of her and Tairuya's story. Maybe because her mind was too confused, Lilu's words didn't match the beginning and the end. If you only take it literally, you have no idea what she wants to express. As expected of Xiao, who has worked with her for such a long time, this is not the first time he has seen Lilu in this state. Xiao picked out key words from her words and reorganized the language herself. Senior Tairuya is going to throw herself into a trap and meet with the president and classmate Wei 11. I know the room arrangements in the girls' dormitory, and I will tell you all about it. Senior Tairuya will find a way to make some noise in the dormitory, and then if we act together with them, maybe things can turn around. This is Tairuya's improved plan. Chiuke relied on the physical strength of the orcs to prevent him from being trapped in the room and ending up in this situation, probably to protect Wei 11. In order to deal with the students of Frost Moon Academy, the opponent must have prepared a pair of magic equipment. If the inside and outside work together, and a large enough commotion is suddenly created, the enemy without special training will definitely disorder themselves, thus opening a breakthrough. There is no way to notify everyone in Wangli Academy of this plan, so the final result depends entirely on how well everyone can understand it. Once out of the predicament and no longer restricted by magic equipment, Wei 11 can use her abilities, and others can join forces to break through the blockade on the 4th floor and rescue everyone in Wangli Academy. According to the statement, it seems that there should be no problem. Xiao put her hand on her chin. Ika-san, what do you think? I have no objection. Perhaps what Ika is waiting for is Tairuya's plan. According to what you said, Tairuya-senpai has already involved herself for us. If we are still worried about this and that, don't. Speaking of self-esteem, even the most basic bottom line of being a human being has not been reached. Ika's words were not only meant for Xiao, but also to stop herself from being like what she said, worrying about this and that. To be honest, Ika was filled with uneasiness about what she was going to do next. It doesn't matter what happens to me, but my actions will have an impact on Wei 11, everyone in the Shimatsuki Academy Student Union, and everyone in the Wangli Academy Student Union. With the future of so many people on our shoulders all at once, if we say we don't hesitate at all, it would be an understatement. Both Akatsuki and Lilu looked at him. Even though they had seen his hesitation, they still believed in his judgment. We just have to do it. Ika squeezed out these words from her throat. If you decide to do something, you must not fail. He reminds everyone and warns himself. I knew you would say that. Xiao smiled and patted Ika on the shoulder. Ika's answer still satisfied him. Please, please, our brave of Shiyu Academy. What hero? Ika, you don't have to be so humble in front of us. Lilu also joked, the brave one is the big one. Don't give me such a shameful title. Unfortunately, Ika's protest could only be heard by the two people present, but this title had already been widely circulated among the students of Frost Moon Academy. In order to facilitate supervision, Tairuya indeed saw Chiuke and Wei 11 being restrained in the room. Seeing Tairuya being brought into the room, Chiuke showed a somewhat surprised expression, while Wei 11 lowered her eyes apologetically. Tairuya sat down between the two of them silently. With his hands behind his back and being handcuffed, the magic power was not completely suppressed, but the flow rate slowed down a lot. Maybe she hadn't considered that the vampire's magic power was somewhat special. Tairuya was even grateful to the manufacturer for not thinking well. Feel sorry. Before the two people beside them understood why Tairuya wanted to apologize, they felt a slight pain on their fingers. Tairuya used her nails to make a small cut on the fingertips of Chiuke and Wei 11, then cut her own finger, and let the blood droplets from the wounds flow into their bodies. Xiaoyaya, are you? Don't even open your mouth. Tilyuya's voice sounded in the minds of the two of them, and Wei 11, who was a little surprised for a moment, immediately understood what was going on. But, magic power is not. If you have any opinions, please go to the person who made this crappy thing. Tilyuya answered Wei 11's question in a concise and easy to understand manner. The magic power has indeed been suppressed a lot, and this method won't last long. You guys need to be careful first. Listen to what I have to say. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 105. Three figures moved furtively among the ornamental bushes. They had to suppress the sound of their footsteps without causing any noise from the branches around them, so their movements were naturally slowed down a lot. The bushes stopped when we were still some distance away from the girls' dormitory, and we couldn't continue to approach our destination from here. The three of them squatted down in the bushes and peered through the gaps in the branches and leaves at the door. The gate, which was originally unguarded, now has men with guns patrolling back and forth. There are only 3 fish that slip through the net, so it is a natural idea to strengthen the guard of the prison. Tilyuya didn't think of using anything as a signal at the time, but it must have been something obvious. You can't miss the slightest change in your surroundings. You don't know when Tilyuya's signal will appear. I don't know how many enemies are waiting in the dormitory building. The boys' dormitory building is some distance away from here, so I can't see the specific situation. Now we can only take one step at a time, giving priority to the side first. The surrounding environment has not changed for a long time. Time passes by, and the anxiety in my heart continues to accumulate as time goes by. Here we go. Start as planned. Xiao's words suddenly rang around her, and Aika's tense nerves finally relaxed for a moment. The long-awaited signal was received by Akatsuki. Tilyuya probably used the characteristics of the vampires to break through many obstacles and send the signal. Aika gripped the butts of both pistols. There was no need to specifically aim. Lilu had already told the two of them in detail the layout of the entire girls' dormitory. The 6th and 7th floors are currently uninhabited, so Aika shows no mercy. After condensing the magic power, the fiery eyes can make more accurate shots. Considering that the opponent may be discovered during the process of condensing the magic power, and the target is so big, it is impossible to miss. Aika roughly used magic power to connect to the emblem of the fiery eyes. A large unadjusted magic power rushed out from the muzzle in an irregular shape and hit the highest 2-story empty building of the girls' dormitory at the speed of light. At the same time, with the blessing of Lilu's shielding magic, Xiao took out 2 daggers from his uniform. The bright blades reflected night light, but this only source of light would not be discovered by the enemy. The elves' hallucinations have no loopholes. The wind pressure caused by Xiao rushing out of the bushes will even be completely ignored by the opponent. Faster than bullets, Xiao smoothly used the handle of the dagger to knock the 2 men guarding the door unconscious and fell to the ground. The men who noticed that something was wrong gathered around them, but the silver bullets shot from the dark were scattered in the blink of an eye. Encircled. I'm sorry, can you let me go to the bathroom? Wei 11 stood up from the bed and asked the men with guns in a trembling voice. TCH, why are women and children always in such trouble? The men seemed undecided and looked at each other. Is there a bathroom in this room? There are too many people here. I want to go to the one in the corridor. Wei 11's legs were bent inward, her cheeks flushed red, and if she left it alone, tears or other liquids would seem to pour out. If there is only one person, I will take her there. There is no danger to a child like this. One of the men grabbed Wei 11's arm with his big hand. When her request was agreed to so simply, Wei 11 felt even more frightened. Her feet felt like they were rooted in the ground, unable to take a step forward. Come on, do you want to pee here? The man whispered in Wei 11's ear with evil intentions. If you don't leave, you will be suspected. Wei 11 just followed Tilyuya's instructions and pretended that she couldn't help it. There was no way to turn back now. She was led out of the room by the man without any resistance. Then, the door was closed ruthlessly, and Way 11's situation was isolated. When the guards were all focused on Way 11, who made an unexpected move, Chiuke had already used brute force to quietly break the connection of the handcuffs. "Hey, hurry up and go. I can't do it." Way 11 slowed down to buy more time for the two people who stayed behind. She had to find an excuse that would not be suspected. "We can't go any faster. Do you think it will leak out?" The man showed an evil smile and pushed Way 11 from behind to speed up her pace. After being pushed to the bathroom at the end of the corridor, the man followed Way 11 in without caring. Standing at the door of the compartment, Way 11 stopped. "What's wrong? Hurry up. Otherwise, they will get impatient after a while and they will all come over to watch." Way 11 turned around. The man was several heads taller than her. "Can you please wait outside?" "Of course this is impossible. I have the responsibility to monitor you. Oh, by the way, it's a little inconvenient to have your hands cuffed behind your back, right?" The man forced Way 11 to the door. "Let me take it off for you. I also brought tissues for you." "No, do not want." Way 11 had no way out, and the man was not in a hurry to touch her body with his hairy hands. Without her noticing, Way 11's tears had slid down her face and dripped on the bathroom tiles. "Little sister, if you don't hold it in, I won't give you a change of clothes." The man wore a malicious smile and stared at the unable to move Way 11. For such people, this is undoubtedly a supreme enjoyment. Even Way 11, who was not familiar with the world, knew how shameful she was in this man's heart. "Oh, you can't stay here for too long. Come on, sit on the toilet." The man opened the bathroom door and pushed Way 11 in regardless of her resistance. His hands roughly lifted up her nightgown. Get out of here." The outstretched thick arm was wrapped with a black whip. Before the man could react, Chiuke threw him directly against the wall. Way 11 stared blankly at the man slumped against the wall, his knees suddenly losing strength. She sat down on the ground, not sobbing, but her tears couldn't be stopped. "Way 11. Chiuke squatted down next to her. "You're not hurt, are you?" From the beginning, the whole building was shaking, and the sound of explosions in the distance was endless, but it took Waxi a long time to notice. The exposed skin touched the cold tiles, and the dampness stung the skin. "Although I was just lying when I said I couldn't help it, now it's backfired and I leaked a little bit." Way 11 stood up silently holding down her nightgown. Chiuke must have noticed what was happening under her skirt. "It's okay. Go back to your room and change your underwear. I will tell you the situation." After tearing off the magic handcuffs, Chiuke's unexpected attack caused the two men guarding the room to lose their fighting ability. The explosion created by Aika attracted the attention of some guards on the floor. Akatsuya-senpai and Rilu had just followed Tairuya to the fourth floor, preparing to rescue everyone in Wangli Academy. Aika is waiting on this floor. With Way 11 who can use barrier magic, the plan is almost coming to an end. Way 11 listened silently to Chiuke's quick explanation. Way 11, sure enough, Aika was standing guard at the door of their room, and the two men were already restrained outside the room with the handcuffs they brought. "Chiuke, thank you for your hard work." Upon discovering that the two of them had returned safely, Aika's frozen expression suddenly brightened. The moment Way 11 saw Aika's figure, she immediately stopped and hid behind Chiuke. "Ah, I forgot that there is such a thing." Chiuke spread his hands. "Aika, please pay attention to the direction of the stairs. Someone may come up from that way." Oh. Aika immediately turned his head, and while he was looking away, Chiuke pulled Way 11 into the room and locked the door. "Rinse it with hot water from the bathroom in the room. I'll go look for it in your closet, okay?" Way 11 nodded slightly and ran into the bathroom. Chiuke immediately opened Way 11's wardrobe. There was nothing special about the style of her underwear, so Chiuke casually took out the folded one on top. After both of them changed into uniforms, they unlocked the door. The whole process didn't take long. The uniforms were just put on casually, so they looked a little messy. But now is not the time to worry about these trivial aspects. It is a blessing to have time to change clothes. The sound of something crashing and the click-click sound of bullets being fired can still be heard upstairs. "I'll go with you." Chiuke only knew what Way 11 needed to do next. "Where are we going?" Aika also looked at Way 11. His mission was just to protect Way 11 while she was preparing the barrier. The central location of the academy is fine. Central location. Aika went through the distribution of buildings in the school in his mind. The gymnasium should be in the center, right? Chiuke, is that right? Aika confirmed with Chiuke. It should be like this. There is no panoramic view to see, and whether the center position is determined is based on physical sense. Anyway, let's go there and take a look first. Aika put away both guns. "Chiuke, I'll leave it to you to be the guard on the road." "What are you going to do?" "Brother Aika." "Way 11, I will carry you this way." "Eh? No, you don't have to look like this." Way 11 shook her head vigorously and took a few steps back. "I just rinsed it briefly and then wiped it dry with a paper towel. If you are too close, you may smell the residual smell." This was the first time that Aika was so obviously rejected by Way 11, and she was slightly shocked. "If you don't want to, but time is very urgent now. Can you keep up with Chiuke and me?" "Maybe, some things can't be done." "This is so nerve-wracking." Chiuke leaned close to Way 11's ear and gave her a small reminder in a voice that Aika couldn't hear. "Men might get excited by things like that. Isn't that the same thing for that bastard? Don't compare that kind of guy to Brother Aika." Sorry, I'm not comparing them." "Well, in other words, at least he won't hate you because of this kind of thing. Trust the person you like more." "What are you two doing? Get out of here quickly." Aika began to urge the two people who were whispering. "Accept his kindness. Although it is quite unwilling to exclude me from the hug just because my athletic ability is slightly better." Chiuke muttered, "I am also a girl's." Way 11 looked at Chiuke, who looked dissatisfied, and suddenly laughed. Her words made an inexplicable sense of superiority emerge in her originally inferior heart, and Way 11 felt a mood called joy. This may be cunning, but Way 11 admits that she hopes to rely on this cunning. "Chiuke, thank you." Way 11 turned to Aika's direction without waiting for Chiuke's response. "Brother Aika." Her hands held the hem of her uniform, and her long white hair was shining behind her. To take the initiative to say this, Way 11 probably needed to use up the courage she had accumulated for a whole day. "Please hold me." She stretched out her trembling hands towards Aika, who was looking at her blankly. After making such a bold move, the eyes can naturally look in other directions to seek a sense of psychological balance. "Understood, Your Highness Princess." Aika immediately understood Way 11's intention through this action, and felt firm determination from her trembling arms. This sentence was once said in front of Her Royal Highness Princess Lan Ming. This time, Aika responded to Way 11's mood with the same belief. He will not let her come to any harm, even if he is not her knight. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 106. The silence in the stadium at this time was in sharp contrast to the grand occasion of that day. Aika felt a little emotional in her heart. Everything started from that time. Way 11 got ready in the center of the field. Next, as long as the barrier can be deployed smoothly, this incident can end smoothly. Things should go smoothly for Tyrua and the others because Aika fully trusts them. The best thing to do now is to protect this girl. In the past 2 months, although I don't know what Way 11 was thinking, from Ika's point of view, there were many things that she wanted to erase from her memory immediately. That night, Way 11 clutched the pajamas on her back tightly and buried her head on them. The wet liquid soaked a small piece of her pajamas. From that night on, Ika had prayed not to let Way 11 encounter something like this again. However, the opposite happened. Ika didn't want to condemn the gods for their negligence, at least he wouldn't use condemnation to escape in his heart. What has happened is irreversible, and there is not much left to do. Chiuke was on guard outside the gymnasium on the alert for anyone approaching here. The door to the gymnasium was open. If there was any emergency, Chiuke could immediately contact the two people staying inside. Way 11's preparations have entered the final stage, and the lines woven by magic power draw a huge magic circle on the wooden floor of the gymnasium. The barrier she uses can cover the entire Wangli Academy, and will restrain everyone within the range regardless of friend or foe. The sky has turned white. With the support of Way 11's huge magic power, the barrier with this effect can last for a long time, long enough to wait for the principal and instructors to come to the rescue. Chiuke walked into the gymnasium. Chiuke, there is no need to continue to be vigilant, come over here. Ika waved to her, but Chiuke fell to the ground without taking another step forward. Hello. Ika ran over quickly, and Chiuke had a small needle inserted in his arm. Ika pulled it out quickly, but no blood came out. I have no relationship. Chiuke has not yet lost consciousness, it's just an anesthetic gun, they are here. As if trying to cover Chiuke's weak words, the footsteps gradually became harsh. Chiuke and Way 11, who have lost the ability to move, are both here. They must not be allowed to enter the gym before the barrier is activated. Ika gritted his teeth and laid Chiuke flat on the ground. Way 11 nodded to Way 11 who wanted to say something, and then rushed out of the gym. Figures emerged from the darkness one after another. These people should be the group of people patrolling the academy or guarding the gate of the academy. If they had attacked Chiuke with live ammunition, Ika might have acted as outrageously as he did on the airship. Thinking of this, Lanming's slap made his face sting. Ika took a deep breath and calmly analyzed the situation. The man who used the tranquilizer gun did not appear in the open. The men surrounding the place now were all armed with live ammunition, and there were no less than 10 of them. They must know that something bad is being prepared for them in the gym, and it is unrealistic to delay it with words. We can't count on Tyruya and the others to rush over to support them, because they are also needed in the boys' dormitory. The flame eye transformed from a pistol into a short rapid-fire gun. Ika held one in each hand, with the muzzle pointed at the ground. If a gun is raised against them, it is a formal declaration of war. Ika wanted to delay as much time as possible. Step aside. Faced with the threatening words of the gunman, Ika forced herself not to look away, so that she was not forced back by the gunman's aura. The leading man raised his gun towards Ika. Again, get out of the way. This man exudes an aura that is completely different from the others. With his sharp eyes through dark glasses, he firmly grasps the scent of his prey in his hands. At the same time, Ika also raised both guns reflexively. Can't win. When the three guns faced each other, Ika realized this deeply. He was just bluffing, so he could instantly measure the gap between them. As long as the opponent pulls the trigger, the bullet will be impossible to dodge. Having foreseen the outcome, there is nothing to fear. Ika doesn't know if this idea is stupid, but the psychological burden has indeed been reduced a lot, therefore, he was able to drive his heavy body to resist. In the chaos, Ika had no time to think. Taking advantage of the surrounding shrubs and trees, he relied on his body's instinctive reactions to perform mechanical movements. I felt sharp pain everywhere in my body. I don't know if it was scratched by a branch or if a metal bullet penetrated my bones. Shoulders, arms, flanks, calves, all basically have the same feeling. The brain was numb to the gradually increasing pain, and there was no longer the previous feeling of wanting to vomit, replaced by the taste of rust in the mouth that numbed the tip of the tongue. His body became heavier and heavier. He didn't know how many enemies he had knocked down, but the sound of gunfire continued, so Ika couldn't stop attacking. The field of vision became increasingly blurry, but Ika did not miss the white shadow that was incompatible with the night, as well as the explosions and heat waves that followed, which were obviously different from the gunshots. One step faster than Chaos's consciousness, Ika's body had already moved and pulled the trigger towards the center of the explosion. However, it seems the target was missed. A powerful force rushed out of the flames and knocked him away heavily. Hey, it's very dangerous. You can just shoot at good people or something like that. Veer, are we good people? Let's just consider it this time. After all, the people in the kingdom played the role of villains. The two people who were talking about something walked towards Ika, who fell on the ground. Obviously, the bruised boy wouldn't wake up anytime soon. End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 107. The news that Tiburai Wangli Academy was violently occupied by armed men at night was exposed by reporters everywhere the next day. Ika woke up in the infirmary of Wangli Academy, and the wounds on her body had almost healed. I sat up a little and moved my arms, but the bones didn't seem to be broken. Although there is some pain, it should still be intact inside. Way 11. Initially, she thought there was no one in the ward, but when she turned her head, Way 11 was sitting on a chair nearby, her little head resting on Ika's quilt, breathing steadily. Her small shoulders rose and fell gently with her breathing. Ika recognized the place where she was now, which was the infirmary of Frost Moon Academy. Since we are here now, the incident should have been successfully resolved. Ika gently got out of the bed from the other side, carried Way 11 to the bed, and covered her with a quilt. After doing this, Way 11 still fell into a deep sleep. Ika looked at her peaceful sleeping face for a while longer, and then walked out of the bed covered by a white curtain. As expected, everyone was waiting outside. Seeing Ika coming out a little unsteadily, they all gathered around. It's embarrassing to say that, except for Ika, no one here has been injured more seriously than him. Even Chiuke, who was shot by the tranquilizer gun, is still alive and kicking as before. All the militants were subdued. According to Tilyuya and the others, Way 11 did not use the barrier in the end. When they arrived at the scene, all the men with guns had lost consciousness. Ika's wounds were simply bandaged by someone who didn't know who, and Way 11 stayed by his side as he was unconscious. Even if she was asked what happened, Way 11 would not say anything. Ika thought of the two people she saw before her consciousness was interrupted. That man's face can't be forgotten even if he wants to. Ika didn't reveal what he was thinking, although he felt a little guilty for hiding it from his friends. If the time came, he would definitely tell it all. Way 11 must have heard something from those two people, and Ika was going to wait until she was alone with her before asking her what happened after that. He looked at the curtain as pure white as Way 11's hair color. What kind of dream was she dreaming now? Only now did Ika think about whether there would be anything wrong with letting her sleep on the bed she had slept on. But then I thought about it, this wasn't the first time they slept together. If it offends her, a good apology after waking up should do the trick. Way 11 is such a child, and sometimes Ika even feels that he is taking advantage of her sincerity. Anyway, let her have a good rest now. The one who suffered the most damage was undoubtedly Way 11. Exchange learning does not end because of emergencies. In their public speeches, the two principals deeply reflected on the college's negligence and skillfully calmed the students' emotions. Although the news reported by reporters cannot be withdrawn, Tiburai Wangli Academy has controlled the leakage of information to a certain extent. The Knights of the Kingdom of Tiburai were also alarmed by this incident. The top leader of the Knights attended the public meeting after the incident and carefully answered the reporters' questions. Through this incident, the government has to disclose its unclear attitude towards the technology party. At this stage, the government has only conveyed this meaning. However, once this statement is made, it must have a huge influence. The most important purpose of this exchange and learning has indeed been achieved. The news has been relayed to neutral territory. In order to block intelligence, the Tiburai Kingdom blocked communications to foreign countries. Ika and Wei 11 were unable to contact Luo and Ling using PDAs for a long time. They must have seen the news. I wonder how the two of them will feel now. Ika eagerly hopes to hear their voices right away. Fortunately, the news mentioned that all the students were fine, so I could only suppress my worry for the time being. This time, Ika and Wei 11 took the Mistus together and returned from the second airport of the Tiburai Kingdom. All my thoughts on the return journey were overtaken as soon as my feet set foot on the ground. Elder brother. Among the people leaving the ship, Luo, who had arrived at the port early to wait, immediately found the person he thought about day and night. The weight that fell on her body almost caused Ika, whose body had not fully recovered, to fall. That would be too embarrassing. Ika could only hug Luo's waist tightly with her arms, and the familiar touch made Ika's nose feel sore. I know, you can't blame brother, it's not my brother's fault. Luo was held in Ika's arms, her weak little fists accompanied by warm tears falling on Ika's chest every time she spoke. Even with such gentle force, every blow made his heart hurt as if it was being grasped. In the end, I couldn't even organize a complete sentence. All that remained was the sound of crying that was like emptying all the air from the lungs. Ling. Ika caressed Luo's back helplessly, then looked up at the blonde girl who had been standing behind her, looking wordlessly at this side. Even without tears, her red eyes betrayed her hidden emotions. Ling sniffed hard, closed her mouth tightly, and clenched her hands into fists. If Luo hadn't hugged him, Ling's far from gentle fist would probably have fallen on Ika's face and body immediately. Wei 11 walked timidly in front of Ika and Luo, and lowered her head towards Ling. She didn't apologize, she just used this action to convey all her feelings to her master. Ling looked at Wei 11 with the same eyes, and then at Ika. Her clenched fists loosened and her eyes softened slightly. As long as it's okay. It was a very cold statement, and Ling had no intention of adding anything to it. This is enough, because it is Ling, so this sentence already explains everything. Luo finally stopped crying, and Ling took her away from Ika. The four people began to walk slowly towards home. There are still many things that can only be sorted out at home and explained to them slowly. Now this road requires no words, and the familiar plants and trees gradually come into view. Winter is over, the breath of life begins to wake up from the harsh winter, and spring is about to begin. I was on the road until I got home. So why not enjoy this momentary journey with them? Ling and Luo walked on the left side of Ika, and Wei 11 followed on his right with her head lowered. Suddenly, her sleeves felt pulled. Ika turned her head, and Wei 11 was holding her sleeves. Ika was ready to hold her hand out of habit, but Wei 11 shook her head. As long as it looks like this, it's enough. Ika's warmth can be vaguely felt on the fabric, and Wei 11's heart is also surrounded by the same warmth. Wei 11 temporarily kept the two wishes Ika had promised in her heart. Because of this, there is a feeling that happiness can continue like this. The time the two of them spent together was over, but Wei 11 didn't feel any regret. She looked at her travel bag placed on Ika's suitcase. Two reverse-colored black and white bears clinging to each other. This irreplaceable and intangible happy time has turned into an equally irreplaceable and tangible precious treasure. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 110. Luo opened the door of the administrator's cabin, and the feeling of nostalgia came to his face. After 2 months of absence from this shelter, When my feet completely stepped into it, a sense of fatigue and peace of mind mixed together and hit my heart instantly. Ika let go of the suitcase's lever and stood in the entrance hall at a loss. At this moment, he suddenly didn't know what to do next. Way 11 just stood beside him quietly without making any move. The two people walking in front had already laid out their warm-looking boots at the entrance. Ling walked into the house, and the sound of the heater starting to work came from far away. Luoluo thought Ika and Way 11 were waiting for him, so he quickly moved away from the entrance. This small gesture brought Ika back to her senses. This is my home. He opened and squeezed his frozen palms repeatedly, leaving the inexplicable loneliness behind. Elder brother. Luoluo did not return to the warm house, but kept waiting for Ika here. She had vaguely guessed Ika's current mood. Although she had not experienced it personally, Luoluo felt that she would be able to understand his current feelings. She reached out and picked up the travel bag Way 11 had placed on the suitcase. The bathroom is ready. If you don't hurry up, the water will get cold. After saying that, she left here. However, with just a few words, the ridiculous feeling of strangeness was wiped away. Way 11, you go first. The familiar rhythm of life has not disappeared. Luoluo looked at the two people as usual and smiled. The sadness and pain have been covered up by tears. The moment I saw him, my frozen heart had to be melted. Pulling on his clothes, as if holding something that belonged to her firmly in her hands, Luoluo could be her original self. The water in the bathroom could not be heard from the hall. Ika sat on the chair next to the table, resting her head on one hand, looking around the room surrounded by familiar colors. He hadn't gone back to his room yet, not for any deep reason other than that he wanted to do so now. Some things don't seem to be in their original place. There is a potted plant by the window that I don't know the name of. When did you buy it? Or was it planted by the two of them in the past 2 months? The table he is leaning on now can even reflect his own image under the lighting. It sounds like they have done a thorough cleaning. Can the effect last so long? There are a lot of things Ika desperately wants to know, but there is no one here who can answer his questions. Luoluo and Ling are both upstairs now, which is why he doesn't want to go upstairs for the time being. There is absolutely no escaping what happens next. Taking advantage of this time, Ika still had things to think about. Since returning home, Luoluo and Ling have not made any requests, so Ika must take the initiative to ask. They gave Ika plenty of time to adjust his mentality, so he couldn't take advantage of their goodwill to escape reality. If you are not busy now, there are some things you can tell me. Before that, Ika had confirmed that Way 11 was also mentally prepared. Although Way 11 did nothing wrong, after all, the source of everything was her proposal. Based on her character, she will definitely take all the responsibility on herself. Way 11 has indeed changed during this period, but the most essential part will not change. Ika is very aware of this, and even so, she has to be placed at the center of criticism. This is because if some things are not spoken openly, no problem will be solved. She clearly knew what response the other party wanted from her, but chose to deliberately avoid it. Ika did not want Way 11 to bear the double psychological burden. The only one who responded to him with words was Luoluo. Ling just glanced at him and then sat at the table with Luoluo. At least they have the intention to listen carefully now. Maybe both of them have thoughts that they can't guess, but let's put those aside for now. After knowing these things, those thoughts may change. The so-called human heart is such a thing. If it does not belong to you, you will never be able to determine its reality. Ika and Way 11 sat opposite the two of them. The heater next to the wall made a slight operating sound. The kettle that Luoluo placed on the stove had not yet emitted steam, and the flames were slightly disturbed by the flowing air. He must be the one to break this heavy air. Ika had already thought about what she wanted to tell them, what she didn't need to say. However, sitting in the chair, the organized words became blurred. As a result, in his statements, there were more and more modal particles such as like this, almost, which are used to buy time for the brain to think. In order for the two of them to understand his incoherent expressions, Wei 11 occasionally helped to make a few additions. Crossing the deadline with Lanming and Charlotte on the airship, being involved in partisanship at Tiburai Academy, Ika spoke out what he thought was important without reservation. However, he felt that the peaceful time spent with Wei 11 was not what Luoluo and Ling wanted to know most now. In order not to waste too long, he chose to keep silent. Luoluo and Ling never expressed their opinions during the entire briefing session. When Ika stopped to see if they had anything to say, Luoluo would nod slightly, indicating for him to continue talking, and when she looked at Ling, she would just before their eyes met, he looked at his intertwined hands on the table. Speaking of which, Ling hasn't said a word to Ika since they met at the airport. After entering the house, she went straight back to her room. When she heard Ika wanted to explain something, the two of them interacted again. This cold attitude was not revealed in front of Ika on the first day. This is what Ling is really like, Ika thinks. Because Ika thinks so, this is what Ling really looks like. One person may have 1,000 images in the eyes of 1,000 people. Among these 1,000 images, not one of them is unreasonable. Because every observer only has unique cognitive abilities. Once a conclusion is made in the mind, it will naturally become the reality of the observer. So the Ling in Ika's eyes is the Ling in everyday life. The last word came out of his mouth. At this point, there was nothing more to hide. Ika and Wei 11 stopped talking and waited nervously for the actions of the two people opposite. Brother, Xiao 11. Luoluo's soft words were particularly clear in the quiet room. When I saw you at the airport, I was actually very angry, but I couldn't help being angry. I don't know how to describe it, it's just. There was no anger in Luoluo's tone now. She seemed to be just fabricating a non-existent mood. However, Ika and Wei 11 knew that that feeling had been integrated into every tear shed by Luoluo. At that time, the warm tears not only wet the clothes, but also invaded the hearts of everyone present, leaving indelible water stains. The kettle on the stove made a whew sound, and steam came out of the spout lightly. Excuse me. Luoluo's unspoken words were shelved. She covered her mouth and left her seat, heading towards the cooking room. The hurried footsteps concealed her heart and took her away from here. Don't let her show such an expression again. Ling immediately stood up, the matter is over. Just like Luoluo said, it's not your fault. Leaving these words to express forgiveness for the two of them, Ling turned around and left here. The kettle stopped making noise, probably because Luoluo turned off the fire, but she hadn't come out of the cooking room yet. There was a sound of the door closing on the second floor. Brother Ika, I'm going back to my room first. Wei 11 stood up with her hands on the chair. The long explanation would make her feel extremely tired. She and Ling live in the same room, so you need to be mentally prepared to face her at this time. But Wei 11 didn't show any reluctance. She wanted to use her own efforts to restore the calm atmosphere in her home. Yes, Ika nodded with confidence. It would be more appropriate for Wei 11 to comfort Ling than to herself, if Ling. Momentarily speechless. What should I say? Ika doesn't know. If it is to comfort Luoluo, Ika thinks it is not difficult. But when the target is Ling, Ika always needs to think carefully before taking action. He has no experience in dating girls of the same age. It is of course impossible to say that he will not be nervous when facing Ling. Ling unexpectedly entered Ika's life. Because of her appearance, Ika's life changed drastically. But he didn't think it was something to complain about. Ika felt so satisfied with the life she was living now that she slowly became immersed in it and took everything around her for granted with legitimate excuses. Nothing. Until the end, Ika didn't have a clear idea. Wei 11 stood quietly in front of him, her hands hanging in front of her and her fingers intertwined. Way 11, good night. Well. She let go of her crossed fingers, brother Ika, good night. The hem of her skirt turned in a circle, creating a slight breeze. Etc. Ika suddenly reached out and grabbed her forearm as she turned around to leave. Brother Ika. Perhaps because of her excessive strength, Way 11 turned her head with a somewhat painful expression. When he reacted, his hand had already been stretched out. Ika let go of Way 11, but this behavior no longer allowed Way 11 to leave peacefully. Ika shook her teeth. At that moment, he had already noticed it. In the past 2 months, I have actually been relying on Way 11. He wanted her to stay with him and didn't want to stay here alone, so his body unconsciously made a move to keep Way 11. Way 11 held the place where Ika touched with her other hand on her chest. There was a numbing feeling coming from there, and the pain from just that moment has not completely disappeared until now. But Way 11 closed her mouth tightly and did not let any sound come out. This pain is exactly the same as that in Ika's heart. In this case, you must bear it with him. This is your own willfulness. Ika's hands were firmly pressed on her knees, her eyes always staring at the table. He didn't know what to do with Way 11 who was waiting, but Ika didn't want the fact that she was by his side to disappear. The flow of time becomes slow in Ika's consciousness. This is because the brain is deceiving itself. Obviously, it is very clear that Ika's body and heart strongly refuse to take action to break this state. As long as you keep silent like this feeling of peace of mind will continue indefinitely. Even though it was such a tyrannical and unreasonable wish, Ika was still thinking about the reasons that could justify it. However, Way 11 used her actions to destroy Ika's wrong wish. She knelt down next to Ika and placed her hands on the back of Ika's fisted hands. The warmth that does not belong to him slowly pushes Ika's stagnant time forward. After Ika returned to the room, there was finally movement in the room next to her. If he had stayed in the hall, Luoluo might have been hiding in the cooking room. Ika put down the half-packed suitcase and looked from the window to the next room. There was no light on the window of Luoluo's room. Would it be better to talk to her again tomorrow? Ika suddenly thought of this, but the light in Ling and Way 11's room made him give up the idea. Although she didn't make an agreement with Way 11, Ika couldn't let her work hard for everyone alone. After knocking on the door of Luoluo's room, he didn't wait for a long time. Ika walked into the room. It was not completely dark inside, but the light coming from the window had an illusory beauty. Luoluo didn't say anything. She sat on the edge of the bed. The bed shrouded in shadow blended her expression into the darkness. Ika didn't turn on the light in the room. He walked to the desk by the window, naturally pulled out the chair she usually used, and sat down facing Lolo. There are so many things I want to say and the feelings I want to convey that I can't list them all. After entering this room, my whole body became relaxed. This time, I should be able to express it properly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 111. Early the next morning, Ika kept her promise last night and got up early to prepare everyone's breakfast with Luoluo. A few hours ago, the brother and sister recalled many past events that only they knew. I don't remember who started it, but when I noticed it, it became this kind of atmosphere. Finally, Luoluo made this request jokingly as punishment for worrying himself. Near the end, Ling and Way 11 appeared together in the stairwell. Usually the two of them rarely leave the room at the same time, so this is a rare sight. Morning. Today, Ling's eyes were not filled with sleepiness. Like Ika, she woke up early. When walking to the stairwell, Ling vaguely heard the sound of Ika and Luoluo talking from the hall. She stopped, and after hesitating for a while, She turned and returned to the room. It was not until Wei 11 got up that she come to the hall with her. She didn't look at the two busy people, but she still said hello. Good morning. Wei 11, who was still in a dazed state, was pulled closer to the bathroom by Ling. Sister Ling seems to be in a good mood. Is that so? Ika and Luoluo placed the steaming breakfast on the dining table. This was something they often did in their hometown, so their movements didn't feel awkward at all. Of course, Ika can only be assigned to the job of underling, and the heavy responsibility of chef still falls on Luoluo. Brother, you must not have discovered anything, right? Huh? What did you find? Ika doesn't know what Luoluo wants to express. Sister Ling's matter. Luoluo didn't want to mention this kind of thing. If Ika hadn't been able to discover it, she would have felt inexplicably lucky. But at the same time, another irrepressible mood will quickly expand. So Luoluo often says things like this without sincerity. Ling. Ika placed the plate in the center of the table in the hall and thought about it for a moment. If there is anything different, it's probably that she is angrier than usual this time, right? Ika was completely used to Ling's angry look, so he could only think of it to this extent. Then do you know why Sister Ling is so angry? Probably because when they could contact each other, both Ika and Wei 11 kept silent about the events that happened and tried to hide the past. Although I think Ling should be able to understand the intention of the two of them in choosing this approach, it is indeed a selfish behavior. He solved the problem silently, indulging in this sense of satisfaction, without even thinking about the feelings of those who were worried about him. No, it's not like that. After hearing Ika's thoughts, Luoluo shook his head and sighed. Although this is part of the reason, but Luoluo, the last bit of facial cleanser has just been used up. I'll go out and buy a new bottle later. Ling returned to the hall. Is there anything else I need to bring back along the way? Wei 11 sat down on the chair next to Ling, and Ika's seat was opposite her. Well, since everyone is back, it's better to buy more ingredients and a bottle of shampoo, Luoluo said and looked at Wei 11. Xiao 11 wants to talk to Wei 11 later. Let's go to the moonlight bath together. We started preparations for opening the store a few days ago, and we're going to help too. But I didn't receive it. This is a verbal notice, Luoluo answered Wei 11's question with a non-committal attitude, so Xiao 11 must work hard with me there all day long. Then she looked at Ling, who had been silently eating breakfast silently since the beginning, with a meaningful look. Ling also noticed Luoluo's gaze from the corner of her eye, but she did not respond. In 3 days, the four of them will officially enter the 2nd grade. Ling, do you need my help? Ika was worried about how to talk to Ling, and she didn't know whether Luoluo created this opportunity intentionally or unintentionally. No. All he got was a calm reply. No, but, aren't there a lot of things to buy? Ika still doesn't want to give up. If it were normal times, since Ling said this, he would definitely not continue to persist. But now that she was rejected like this, Ika felt a sense of resistance in her heart. Are you looking down on me too much? I agreed beforehand that my physical ability is much stronger than yours. There is a thorn in every word of Ling. After what she said, Ika couldn't find an excuse to go with her. Sister Ling, I also have something I want to buy. Wei 11 shrunk her body and squeezed into the tense atmosphere between the two. You guys. Ling had long discovered their intentions. The reason why the first sentence in reply to Ika expressed a clear rejection was to completely cut off his own escape route. Otherwise, Ika would definitely not give up, and you could guess what he would say next from his nervous expression. If Ika keeps insisting like this, there will be no way for him to maintain this attitude forever. At this time, Ling couldn't even figure out whether he should say I'm sorry in his heart. Buy the necessary things first today. Those that you won't need for the time being, let's go buy them together next time. Ling's plate was already empty, and she ate twice as fast as usual today. Because before that, she had been keeping her head down and repeating the action of putting the spoon in her mouth. She didn't think about anything at that time, and even the voices of the three of them seemed a little distant. Ling just wanted to spend this time as quickly as possible, leaving the table and hiding away from where he could see her. Starting from the moment when she saw Luo crying yesterday, Ling suddenly felt deeply confused in her heart. An irritable feeling spread in my heart. There was something I wanted to figure out, but I couldn't remember it. I feel anxious for no reason, but I can't grasp its source. This feeling became more obvious when she saw Ika, so she just wanted to end the conversation with him as much as possible, even if she was overly self-aware and didn't want him to notice her. At this time, Ling Ke experienced firsthand the feeling of Wei 11, who had been carefully keeping a distance from the people around her. Is it so painful? Luo and Wei 11 did have moonlight bathing work to do, and Ling also left home early. Ika, who was alone in the room doing nothing, was thinking about how to pass this boring time. As if it had been prepared for him, the doorbell of the caretaker's cabin rang. Ika stood up from the upturned chair and answered the door. There were 3 unexpected people outside the door. Excuse me for disturbing you. This is not the first time Chiuke has come here, but this time her attitude is much more reserved. Abby and Zixi behind her were also coy, and they slightly lowered their heads instead of saying hello. Ken, let us in. Chiuke asked timidly. It was indeed so different from her usual self that Ika felt a little uncomfortable for a while. You don't need to ask specifically about this kind of thing, right? Ika stepped away from the entrance. Is this the first time for Abby and Zixi to come here? Sister Ling invited us, but we were delayed by other things at that time. Sit wherever you like, leaving them in the entrance hall. Ika walked into the house. He recalled Luo's way of entertaining guests and filled 3 people with half a cup of warm water in a guest cup. The 3 girls were sitting on the sofa with only room for 2 people. It seemed surprisingly not crowded. Thanks. Chiuke took the lead and took the water glass from Ika. Because she had already been here once and Ika's attitude was very casual, her nervousness subsided a little. Ika sat on another sofa, waiting for the 3 of them to explain the reasons for their visit. Each of them had expressions on their faces that they wanted to say something, but they seemed to be hesitating because they didn't know who should start. I'm here to apologize today. Finally, it was Chiuke who broke the silence. Originally, he was the one who made that suggestion, and he was also the student council president, so he had to take the lead in expressing his attitude no matter what. She was so determined that she bit the bullet and explained her purpose. Did you do something? Why are you suddenly apologizing? I did it. Before you came back, Her Royal Highness Princess Lanming said it on the news. Isn't that the airship you and Wei 11 were on? There was only one flight that night. Sister Ling knew it immediately when she saw the news. After hearing Abby and Zixi's explanations, Ika understood what was going on. When Tiburai Royal Academy was occupied by armed forces, Her Royal Highness Princess Lanming had returned to the BZ Empire and accepted an interview for the state visit. During the interview, she explained the high-altitude accident to all citizens without hesitation. The arrested prisoners were announced as unaffiliated terrorists. Her Royal Highness Princess Lanming expressed that she and Charlotte were safe and sound, and expressed her gratitude to the passengers who helped her. The names of Ika and Wei 11 were not specifically mentioned in the news, but when related to the time of the incident, everyone immediately thought of the 2 people who set off at the same moment, and naturally connected this incident with them. But by the time the news was broadcast, it was impossible to contact them. After Chiuke came back, he learned the news from the 2 of them, and then he realized that Ika and Wei 11 had experienced such a thing before joining everyone. Why didn't you tell us? For a moment, Chiuke seemed to have forgotten that his purpose was to apologize. There was a reproach in her tone. I think saying this kind of thing will only trouble you. Chiuke's unexpected accusation made Ika speechless for a moment, and hasn't it been solved already? Even so. Wait, did this news come out late at night? Ika suddenly noticed something inconsistent. No, I remember. It had been a long time since that day, and Abby recalled it for a while. The live broadcast started around 9 o'clock in the evening. At 9 o'clock, the armed occupation of the Science and Technology Party had not yet begun, but there was no way to be contacted, indicating that the signal was not blocked late at night. If someone had checked the PDA at that time, they might have been able to detect this anomaly and be more vigilant. But now I can only think about unrealistic possibilities. Thinking and doing are always two different things. Sister Ling asked Chiuke for the contact information of Principal Felice, but the reply she got was that you are all safe now and don't have to worry. However, the next day I saw the news about Tiburai Wang Lixia news about the garden. This situation will indeed make people feel complicated. I really can't imagine what Ling and Luoluo looked like at that time. This can explain why the two of them were so calm when listening to the explanations of themselves and Wei 11. It turned out that they already knew everything before this, and now they were just waiting for the two of them to say it in person. I saw Luoluo and Wei 11 just after passing the moonlight bath. Where did Sister Ling go? End La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 112. Ling pushed the trolley and slowly browsed the shelves in the shopping mall. What a blessing. She muttered to herself and put the only bottle of body wash left on the shelf into the trolley. All the daily necessities have been purchased, and the next step is the most important ingredients. This is the first time I go shopping alone. To be honest, Ling didn't know how to choose ingredients. Even simple cooking methods have only been learned recently, let alone buying ingredients in person. Luoluo usually makes these things, and Ling just follows her around the food area without paying attention to the selection criteria. Now standing in the food area, looking at the various products, Ling stood there blankly, not knowing where to start. She had already put down her big words and rejected Ika's colleagues, but now she asked Ika's sister for help, but she still felt that it was unacceptable, so she did not take out the PDA. As for Wei 11, she probably doesn't know this knowledge either, and now that she is with Luoluo, it's better not to let her know. The few people closest to him couldn't rely on him. In this case, Ling had only one choice left. Ika and Chiuke's conversation gradually turned into small talk, and the initial heavy air had disappeared. Ling looks strange. Unconsciously, the focus of the conversation shifted to Ling. Chiuke's ears twitched. She couldn't deduce anything from Ika's description. She made a gesture of thinking, but in fact her mind must be empty. Ah, Zixi suddenly pointed at Ika and shouted, "It must be because of you that Sister Ling is in a bad mood. It sounds like it's really, no, Wei 11 should have solved that problem. I swear this time I didn't do anything." "Swear on your heart." "That's right," Ika knocked on his chest confidently. "Wait a minute, what does it mean to swear on your heart? If you lie, your heart will explode. This kind of oath is too solemn. If the consequences were not serious, wouldn't swearing have no effect?" Abby smirked and shrugged. "Can't we just ask her directly?" Chiuke suddenly expressed this idea. She didn't know whether it was the result of careful consideration or whether she thought it was the simplest and said it casually. This is indeed the most direct and straightforward method, and you can get the answer on the spot even after asking. But what Ika wants is a reality that can uproot it. If Ling cannot be understood from the most fundamental perspective, then this answer will forever be shrouded in mystery. Such an answer is meaningless to both herself and her. Abby and Zixi may not have discovered this yet, because Ling's disguise is so perfect. The classmates around them all thought that to the four of them, Ling was just an ordinary girl who could be called a close friend. While thinking this way, Ika's hand unconsciously reached to the right side of her face. The traces left by the first encounter with Ling have completely disappeared, and the slightly hesitant knife did not leave an unhealable wound in Aika's heart. This is true for Aika, but what about her? At home, Ling's position is undoubtedly the sister of Lugo Lugo and Wei 11. Even Aika sometimes even has the illusion that she is his childhood sweetheart. Chiuke suddenly took out his PDA during the chat. Aika was still arguing about something with Abby and Zixi, and didn't notice this. Aika, what do you usually like to eat? Huh? Why are you asking about this suddenly? Because, as a reference. Chiuke raised his fingers and covered the PDA screen on his chest. I basically eat everything. There's nothing I particularly like or dislike. This kind of answer won't work at all. Chiuke moved closer to him anxiously. There will always be some people you prefer, right? And then, there will also be people who will feel as if all their strength is being taken away just by looking at them. That kind of food, green peppers, green onions, green peppers and the like. Chiuke, you just said green pepper twice, right? Aika wanted to make sure she heard correctly, but Chiuke immediately waved her hands desperately in front of her chest. No, no, it was so noisy just now, you must not have heard clearly. We didn't talk just now. Abby pointed at herself and then at Zixi, and she nodded in agreement. Chiuke, could you? I'm not a picky kid, eh? With Abby holding her shoulders down, she was dancing on the sofa. After a while, she realized that the PDA she originally held in her hand had disappeared. Don't throw PDAs around. They can break easily, right? The PDA flew out in a parabola from Chiuke's hand, and was firmly caught by Aika in mid-air. His eyes briefly glanced at the screen. Sender, Ling. Chiuke, is it convenient now? I have a question I would like to ask. If possible, please don't tell others that I have asked about this kind of thing. Doesn't your family own a restaurant? Then you must know how to choose ingredients. Could you please teach me the selection criteria for some basic types of ingredients? It's finished, screwed up. Chiuke's ears drooped as if to cover Aika's sight. I know. Aika turned Chiuke's PDA screen down and handed it back to her. I will pretend that I didn't see it, and of course I won't tell Ling. Really? Chiuke deliberately didn't look at Aika at this time, while reaching out his hand, taking back the PDA that Aika handed over, and then hugged it tightly to his chest. But does this question have anything to do with what I like to eat? Judging from this text message, Ling didn't know where to start because Lugo Lugo was not around. If he goes shopping with her, he might be able to help a little bit. After all, he also learned some knowledge in this area from Lugo Lugo. Thinking of this, Aika suddenly felt a little bitter in her heart. When I was clearly rejected by Ling, I didn't know why that kind of unwillingness suddenly emerged. Perhaps it was because Lugo Lugo and Wei 11 were watching from the sidelines at that time, so this was due to boredom and pride. I want to know how Ling feels and how she views herself. Because the only person who is with her every day now is you. And if I were to give examples one by one, it would take hours to finish, so wouldn't it be enough to just choose the food you like to start with? Chiuke's mind works very fast only at times like this. In this case, Aika told Chiuke about the dishes that impressed her most in recent days. When Ling was walking around the food section for the 5th time, the PDA she had been holding in her hand finally started to vibrate. Sender, Chiuke. Aika said potatoes are fine. When you are choosing. Ling's eyes stopped on the first sentence Chiuke sent. Why does Aika's name appear here? For a moment, she couldn't understand what was happening on the other side of the screen. Chiuke, where are you now? After a while, I received a reply. At home, the hot tea made by my mother is delicious. I'm at your door now. This time, I didn't receive a reply from Chiuke after waiting for a long time. Ling roughly guessed the whole story from Chiuke's reaction, and she sighed heavily. Originally, he had been avoiding being known by Aika, so he bypassed Luoluo and came to Chiuke for help. In the end, no matter what method he used, he and Aika were always connected by something invisible and intangible like fate. Even though it was something she had known for a long time, she still. It's so bad. Ling complained softly. There is no specific target, I just want to say this. As a result, everyone waited in the administrator's cabin until Ling came back. Chiuke was about to apologize to her face to face because she messed up what Ling asked her to do, but she accidentally flicked her forehead and was forgiven, and Ling also stayed the three of them at home to have lunch together. Luoluo and Wei 11's lunch will be settled at the moonlight bath. If they don't stay, Ling and Aika will have to sit face to face at the dining table. So Ling would like to thank the three people who have been at home until now and haven't left yet. But Luoluo said that she and Wei 11 would stay at the moonlight bath to help out all day long, so it was inevitable that Ling and Aika would be left alone in the room. Just go back to your room. After Chiuke and the others left, Ling was filled with such thoughts. She hurriedly washed the tableware with warm water and placed them side by side on the display rack, letting the water stains drain off naturally. Then she picked up the peeling knife and rinsed the blade under the water with a rag. This was already a familiar task. Ling just carried out the movements in his hands mechanically, but his thoughts had already drifted far away. Ling, that bottle in the refrigerator. Aika's voice suddenly sounded behind her, and his figure appeared at the door of the cooking room. Ling's fingers suddenly felt a tingling sensation. At that moment, her thinking was slower than her movements, and the sharp blade cut her finger through the gap in the rag. She immediately pulled her hand out of the warm water, and the water droplets dripping from her fingertips were mixed with dark red. Ling didn't pay much attention to this little bit of pain. She gave Aika a slightly reproachful look and put her finger to her mouth. Wait a minute. Wait for me. Aika stopped Ling's movements loudly. His figure disappeared from the doorway, and his voice gradually became distant. Ling stood there blankly, her confused brain unable to understand why Aika was more anxious than herself. The hanging fingertips hadn't stopped bleeding yet, and the incision was much deeper than expected. When the second drop of blood dripped on the floor, Aika roughly pushed open the door, strode up to Ling, and carefully held her injured hand. This is not easy to deal with. Ling's blood stained Aika's hands at the same time. He used soft white gauze to gently wipe away the slightly condensed blood stains, trying not to touch the wound. Then he sprinkled the medicinal powder found in the hall on the wound. When the yellow-green powder fell on the wound, Ling narrowed one eye and frowned. Does it hurt? No, it's okay. When Aika raised her head to ask her this question, Ling immediately returned to her indifferent expression and turned her head to let him do what he wanted. Sorry, I haven't treated anyone else's wounds. While talking, Aika used another piece of clean gauze to bandage the wounds sprinkled with medicine. Do you know how to tie gauze? At the last step, Aika encountered difficulties. Have no idea. Ling still didn't look at him. Doesn't your neck feel sore if you keep tilting your head like this? If it were a normal day, Aika would definitely tease her like this. Then I'll use the ordinary knotting method. He crossed the gauze at both ends, tied a slip knot, and then pulled it slightly to both sides. Does it still hurt? Do you want to tighten it a little more? Didn't I tell you that it doesn't hurt? Even if you don't have to be so exaggerated, you will be fine. If you don't handle it properly, even a minor wound can become a very serious problem if it is infected by something like bacteria. Aika let go of her hand. Don't worry about it during this period of time. Let this place touch the water. As for housework, they and I can do it. Well, I'm going back to my room. Aika's voice was small in reply. Ling held the bandaged hand and quickly passed through him. When Aika turned her head, her sight only captured the tips of her golden hair. The door to the cooking room was opened and then closed. Aika stood up, and her brain, which had insufficient blood supply, felt dizzy for a moment. He walked to the edge of the pool and continued what Chi Ling had done half finished. Ling's blood stains were still stuck to the blade, which was washed away by warm water and slowly flowed into the sewer. This was probably the first time Aika had spoken to Ling for such a long time after returning home. Even so, Aika was still not satisfied. It's not enough. This way, it can't solve any problems at all. I have to admit that from the first time she met Ling, Aika accepted her deep in her heart. Although her personality was the type that Aika couldn't handle, he had never had the idea of trying not to get involved with Ling. On the contrary, Aika hopes to get as close to her as possible. When taking care of Wei 11, he also hoped to have a more relaxed relationship with her, but his relationship with Ling was of a completely different nature. What is it about her that attracts you? If Aika were asked to give examples one by one in detail, he would be unable to say anything. Because Ling's existence is so vague. It's so close, yet so far away. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 113. The preparations for opening the Moonlight Bath store were actually basically completed in the morning. But no one was ready to leave the warm room yet, so senior sister Sira made everyone a cup of hot milk tea. In Moonlight Bath, she has the most experience working on it. There are rumors that even the current interior decoration and uniform design of Moonlight Bath are handled by her. It is not an exaggeration to call her the store manager. Okay, everyone has worked hard. She skillfully placed the tray in the middle of the table. This is my treat for you. Sister Sira is great. It's such a blessing to be able to drink Sister Sira's milk tea. Of course, one table cannot seat so many people, and the seats fixed on the ground cannot be moved. There is no way to put two tables together, so the boys and girls were divided into two small groups and sat together, but they were separated from each other. Not far apart. The time passed quickly while chatting. Before we knew it, in addition to the original milk tea, there were all kinds of snacks on the table. Some boys even ran to the backstage and brought out the electric oven and started an indoor barbecue. Taking advantage of the noisy atmosphere there, the girls' topic direction changed subtly. Xiao 11, Xiao 11. Wei 11 tilted her head when the second-year senior girl called her softly. I heard that during the winter vacation, you and the boy you lived with went to the Tiburai Kingdom for vacation. And there are still two of us, et. Another senior sister didn't know what scene she had imagined, and she shouted excitedly. Sierra quietly raised her finger in front of her lips. Keep your voice down, don't let the other side hear it. Then, she also looked at Wei 11, whose face was flushed, with interest. Just tell us a little bit, how far is it going? Wait a minute, Sister Sierra, there is another person who needs to be avoided. The senior who had just screamed stood up suddenly, walked around the table and came to Luoluo's side. Luoluo immediately knew what she was going to do, but as soon as she stood up, she grabbed her arm. Come on, Luoluo, go grab some meat slices from the boys. No. Why can't I listen? Luoluo struggled desperately, but the senior sister's strength was much greater than expected, and she couldn't pull out her tightly grasped arm at all. Don't you know the reason very well? Ha ha ha. Just like that, Luoluo was forcefully pulled away from the circle of girls by her senior sister and pushed towards the boys. The cheers of the boys completely drowned out Wei 11's voice. By the way, Sister Sira, you have to tell me later. While being careful not to let Luoluo escape back, the senior sister turned her head and smiled brightly at Wei 11, whose mouth was open and unable to make a sound, and Sira, who was waving her hands. Brother, for some reason, the store is in chaos again. Zioxy and I may come back very late, so dinner doesn't have to wait for us. In the evening, Aika received a text message from Lolo. This is the case again. During lunch, there was also a trio of Chiuke who made the atmosphere lively at the table. And now, as long as he thought about it for a moment, Aika could find that even if he talked to Ling as usual, when he thought about it from the perspective of a third party, he would realize that there was a strong sense of violation hidden in it. He was avoiding eye contact with Ling and also avoiding talking about certain sensitive topics. Ling probably had the same idea. Therefore, the connection between the two is even looser than the fried rice that he made in a few minutes. Aika flipped the spatula casually. After receiving Luoluo's text message, he knocked on Ling's closed door. Luoluo and Wei 11 won't be back tonight, what do you want to eat? Ling didn't come out of the room all afternoon. Probably before she woke up, her lazily sounding answer came from inside the room. Anything is fine. Where's the fried rice? There's some left over from lunch, and I can only make this kind of rice. Then why are you asking me? The volume of her voice suddenly increased by a few decibels, and she seemed to be angry. Forget it, I'll do it. I've already told you, take a good rest now and wait until the wound on your hand heals. That's it? It doesn't matter. Luoluo thinks highly of my craftsmanship. Luoluo's evaluation of you cannot be used as a reference at all. Anyway, just wait patiently. You won't be disappointed, probably. There was no reply from Ling in the room. It took a while before her voice was captured by Aika's ears again. Then it's up to you. Her job was taken away, and the faint feeling of loss was mixed in her soft words. Even if you don't think from Ling's perspective, Aika can feel it. The slightly shabby dinner was eaten by both of them in an unnatural silence. Aika quietly paid attention to Ling's reaction while eating, but Ling never raised her head, and her hanging bangs were dangling, blocking Aika's sight. Ling seemed to swallow the browned rice without chewing it. Aika only knew that during this time, she reached for the cup and poured water down her throat no less than 3 times. Mostly because she ate too quickly and choked on the rice. Even so, she kept silent. Aika, who saw this, also remained silent. Ling, who hurriedly cleared away the dinner, put the bowls and chopsticks on the table neatly, and finally said her first words since Aika called her downstairs. I don't have to do the housework, right? The look he looked at Aika was not that he was waiting for an answer, but that in order to make his departure seem more natural, Ling deliberately created some unnecessary conversations. Well, you can rest peacefully for a while. Aika reached across the table, took Ling's tableware, and stacked it with his own, but there is one thing I still have to ask of you. You can wait here first. For a moment. If it's not something very important, just say no tomorrow. Ling didn't want to stay here for a moment. It's just something important. Aika's tone was very calm, but exuded a toughness that could not be rejected. Ling was slightly shocked by his attitude, and their eyes finally met. Aika responded to Ling's gaze with firm eyes. The stare-off lasted less than 2 seconds before Ling immediately turned around. I know, just wait here until you finish. She shook her long blonde hair and walked straight to the sofa and sat down. It seems that they have finally compromised, which should be considered half of the success of the plan. Aika breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, the stalemate with Ling was really tiring. Perhaps, as Chiuke and the others had guessed, Ling's current cold attitude was largely due to him. The only clue Aika could think of was this trip to the Tiburai kingdom. After he and Wei 11 came back, she had always looked so strange. But when he saw her and Wei 11 together in the morning, there was nothing different between them than usual. It's useless to think about it now, Aika sped up the movements of her hands. Tonight, he had made up his mind to erase the sense of disobedience with his own hands. Sorry for the waiting. Aika wiped the water stains on the back of her hands and walked back to the hall. Ling was nibbling on the biscuits on the coffee table, which Aika took out to entertain Chiuke and the others. Finding Aika walking towards the side, Ling immediately stood up from the sofa. If you have anything to say, please finish it quickly. I want to sleep. She guiltily put her hands behind her back and deliberately kept a distance from Ika. Is that why you overeat to stay awake? How is that possible? And this can't be called overeating at all. That's it? Ika nodded secretly in her heart. Seeing Ling looking so energetic, Ika felt that the atmosphere was much more relaxed. Luoluo and Wei 11 won't be back for a while, will they accompany me for a walk? Has your head been frozen in the past 2 months? Ling narrowed her eyes slightly. It's so late, why should I change clothes and go out for a walk with you? Ling is now wearing plush pajamas that are divided into upper and lower garments. Black pantyhose wrap her well-shaped legs and protrude from the pajamas that only reach the top of her thighs. No need to change, we can just walk around the house. There are still a few days until the official start of school, so there are not many students staying in school now, and even fewer people will approach the administrator's cabin. Moreover, it was already dark, and Ling's pajamas were of a more conservative type. If he didn't go too far, there was no need to change into uniform. Besides, you just finished dinner and you ate so many cookies. You can't just lie down and sleep. I only ate 3 biscuits, where did your eyes go? Even so, if you don't exercise, you will gain weight. You don't have to worry about this, Ling smacked her lips, since you said so, it's not impossible to accompany you. Then it's decided. I originally thought that it would take more time to make Ling give up the idea of persisting, but I didn't expect that she would take the bait with such a simple provocation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Endless Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 114. Ika did not turn off the lights in the house or lock the door. Light from the windows illuminated the surroundings of the caretaker's cabin. Ika walked forward slowly step by step, while Ling followed him at a short distance. Ika had a sense of déjà vu to such a scene. I remembered that time when she and Ling went out alone to find teacher Letica, she also kept a distance and followed behind him like she did tonight. Next time, I hope they can go out for a walk without worrying about anything, Ika made this beautiful wish in her heart. The towering tree in front of the administrator's hut, I heard from Luoluo last night that buds have grown on its branches. In Ika's impression, the period when it had the strongest presence was when it was still lush and leafy, but now it has ushered in a new beginning, making Ika truly feel that half a year has indeed passed by like this. He stood in front of the tree trunk and looked up at the tangled branches in the darkness. Ling also followed his footsteps and stood on the spot. The night wind still retains the unique coldness of winter. Ika took a deep breath, pushed the sentimentality deep into her chest, and turned around. The lights in the room shone on Ling's body, and the evening breeze gently ruffled her long hair. The golden hair seemed to be shining under the light. Ika's eyes, which had become accustomed to the darkness, narrowed slightly, and it took a while to slowly adapt. Hey! Ling tapped the ground with her right toe and spoke anxiously, why on earth did you ask me to come out? It's time to explain. Regardless of whether Ika's idea was correct or not, he had to tell Ling himself the next words. Wei 11's efforts alone were not enough, she also had to face it directly and endure the same feelings as her. This is your responsibility as a family. I think you should have guessed it. If you're apologizing to me alone for what happened last night, forget it. I don't care that much anymore. It's just annoying to keep saying the same thing over and over again. I'm already tired enough now. Ling was not as busy as she said today. In order to avoid Ika at home, she stayed in her bed longer than usual. Ban Ling made her purpose clear in advance, which was within Ika's expectation. If you don't want to hear it, I won't say it. But there is one thing I must let you know. The words of apology become meaningless after being said too much, and become useless things piled up with words. It was meaningless, so Ika adjusted her words under Ling's hint, you and Luoluo are both very important people to me. I don't want you to be in a situation where I can't see you. The place is painful, and I don't want you to be troubled because of me. This is probably the reason. This is the message Aika wants to convey to Ling. It is an irrefutable fact that he violated the agreement. Although this statement is like trying to find a reasonable excuse for his behavior, and he does feel a lot more at ease after saying it, it is also the voice of Aika from the bottom of his heart. Important person? What is this? Because of the backlight, Ling's expression was not clearly visible. Just something slipped from her cheek, refracting the faint light in the air, flickering with fluorescent lights in the dark night, and completely disappeared the moment it finally touched the ground. Ling. You're always like this. You don't need to use your brain to use such vague concepts. You feel relaxed, then what should the people who heard it think? Don't put an identity on me that you have never seriously considered. On your body. I've thought about it carefully. Aroused by Ling's attitude, Aika unconsciously raised her voice. We are family now, right? Aren't family important people? He even forgot why he came to apologize. The heightened emotions driven by Ling made him only want to make Ling fully understand what he meant. I'm not. To say that she was not a member of Aika's family, Ling's heart forced her to shut up. Even if she really thought so, she could not express such naked and ruthless words. Once the words were spoken, Ling knew that he would lose everything. Luoluo and I are different. She shrank back in fear of the cold, and tightly grasped her tense left arm with her right hand. The breasts under her pajamas slightly changed shape under the squeeze of her arms. Lolo is your sister, she is your real family, but what about me? I just keep following you because I feel bored. What exactly does an important person mean? What kind of connection must be established to be called to be an important person? Who am I to you? A series of pressing questions were all shouted in a slightly hoarse voice. From the tightly closed eyes, hot tears flowed down uncontrollably, dripping into the soil that had been moistened by rain not long ago. Then why do we have to be related by blood to be called family? Aika did not answer any of Ling's questions, but asked a tit-for-tat rhetorical question. Suppressing his tumbling heart, he had to restrain his actions. He never thought that Ling would cry at this time. In his impression, he had never seen Ling shed a tear since he met her. When she doesn't get her way, she gets angry, makes noises, and uses her body as a sandbag to vent her stress, but she never shows a trace of her soul. I have no family anymore, and if I forget that, I won't be me anymore, so what I can't do, only I can get. Ling did not answer Aika's rhetorical question. She didn't know where the momentum just went. She trembled and spoke intermittently, took a step back, and then took another step back. She was putting distance between herself and Aika. Suddenly, she roughly wiped her eyes with the sleeves of her pajamas, turned around suddenly, hiding Aika's figure behind her invisible back, and started running with her already trembling legs. Why? Ling has run out of words to explain. After yelling nonsense, her clogged heart finally felt much better. At the same time, she also realized that a lot of things had changed. After this night, I may not be able to go back to my normal routine. In his opinion, he must be just making trouble unreasonably. But for Ling, there is a reason to do this. Because if she didn't speak out, she would have no way to stay in this home. This is not Aika's fault, nor is it Luoluo and Wei 11's fault. The only one who is wrong. After learning that Aika and Wei 11 were in danger in the Tiburai kingdom, Ling stayed up all night because of worry. When Wei 11 wasn't sleeping next to her, it felt like the entire bed had become a lot bigger. Ling was always lying on the bed, facing the wall with her eyes closed, the curtains were closed, and there was no light in the room. However, even if she reached this point, she still could not smoothly enter the depths of her consciousness. Pitter-pattering raindrops hit the window. After a long night, Ling dragged her aching body out of bed and opened the curtains. The sky lit up, indicating that several hours had passed silently through the chaos. How many nights like this is this already? Ling weakly returned to the bed and sunk her body into it. Soon, Luoluo will knock on the door. Although he was unable to get in touch with the two people in a foreign country, Luoluo cheered up again after a brief period of anxiety. Because we are family members, we trust him. Luoluo also said similar things at the amusement park in the imperial capital. It is precisely because of the existence of this invisible bond that the connection between the two is so close. This is what Ling longs for in her heart but cannot reach. Although there is no direct entrustment, Wei 11 is the child entrusted to Aika by Terra, so Aika has the responsibility to take care of her daily life. What about yourself? He is the same age as Aika and has the confidence to not lose to him in various aspects. Why do you still stay in this home? If I think about it carefully, I have no direct contact with Aika. They just met during the trip. Generally speaking, they would not develop to the point of living together like now. So, why? Ling got into the tip of this horn. Friend. People who have a little contact can call each other friends. Family. This word sounds very warm and reassuring, but after all, it is just an empty shell. It only lives in a house and cannot be called a family at all. In the end, I realized that I was reluctant to let go just because I got a ray of warmth in the cold winter. And Ling also found the answer to the true nature of this attachment. Let me go. Ling knew she would end up being caught by Aika. She tried her best to break free from his hand. When she was anxious, hundreds of golden particles emerged around the two of them, dispelling the darkness. These golden particles are one of the forms of Ling's magic outfit, the light flame sword. If Ling thinks about it, this dreamy scenery at night will immediately be dyed bright red. Even so, the hand holding her showed no sign of relaxing. Aika didn't waver at all. I won't let you go. On the contrary, Aika increased the force in his hands. Although Ling's back was turned to him now, Aika knew that she must be biting her lip and enduring the pain she had caused. Please be patient a little longer. I said let go, hey. While Aika was relaxing a little, Ling finally found a chance to break free. But the next moment, her whole body could no longer move freely. Aika did not leave this opportunity to her, but went a step further and hugged Ling's body from behind. She had always envied the warmth that Luoluo could feel, but at this moment, Ling's heart was in a state of confusion. It was the first time that the two were so close, and it was the first time that Ling knew that the physical difference between herself and Aika was so obvious. In his arms, every move she made seemed so weak. Despite this, Ling still did not give up useless resistance. Light flame sword. A long sword glowing with golden light was held in Ling's hand. But the body held tightly by Aika couldn't even turn around, and the arms wrapped by Aika's arms couldn't even lift the weapon. Ling. Aika's voice sounded like babble in Ling's ears, I always hope you can be happy. When you are sad, I am willing to listen to you talk. When you are happy, I am willing to accompany you. Smirk, this is family. Ling in her arms gave up struggling, and her hands hung down feebly. The small sword fell to the ground and quietly broke into new golden particles. Just because they are family members, Luoluo and Wei 11 will always ask you to buy things for the family, and I will always ask you to help prepare lunch. And Luoluo and Wei 11 can't imagine your absence. Day. What Aika wanted to say has been said. The only thing left in this silent space was Ling's intermittent sobs. Aika relaxed her arms slightly, because there was no need to do so. Ling did not pull away, as if she had lost her strength, she leaned all her weight on Aika. The sobs turned into clearly audible cries. Golden particles all over the sky, like powdery snow in early winter, are falling one after another. The light belonging to Ling gradually dimmed, and what was left was only a piece of transparency like melting winter snow. And La Silver Machine. Author, Muse Hiking. Chapter 115. In the blind corner of the caretaker's cabin, the little story between Ika and Ling was completely seen by the two girls. Wow, Sister Ling actually. Wei 11 covered her mouth and made an incredible sound. That majestic Sister Ling showed a completely different side in front of Wei 11's eyes than she knew. Although I knew it would turn out like this, my brother's way of taking action was a bit too. The two people hugging each other under the big tree may not realize that from a third party's perspective, this scene is too romantic. When the two came back from work, they heard the voices of Ika and Ling coming from not far away, so they hid here until the end. When Ling summoned the magic costume in panic, both of them were sweating. Fortunately, Ika lived up to their expectations and ended in perfect form. Lolo. Ahaha, let's get in the house quickly, otherwise they will be exposed when they come back. Lolo immediately regained his smile and pulled up Wei 11 who was still squatting on the ground. Taking one last look at the two people not far away, she smiled and touched her chest with her hand. The reason why I feel a little tight in my chest must be because I was too nervous when I peeked. Well, no problem. Your Highness, it's already bedtime. After the dinner time, which was filled with heavy psychological pressure, Her Royal Highness Lan Mingyila, the third princess of the BZ Empire, has been writing and drawing in her dormitory. From time to time, he would put his quill pen against his chin and think. Occasionally, he would show a satisfied smile, and then continue to immerse himself in writing. As her escort knight, Charlotte Izine couldn't bear it anymore in her seat, raised her hand and let out a small yawn. In order to attract Lan Ming's attention, she deliberately broke her private agreement with Lan Ming and used the title Her Royal Highness. Charlotte, come and check it for me. Is it okay to write like this? Well. He took the parchment from Lan Ming's hand and browsed the contents carefully. How's it going? There's nothing rude about it, right? There's nothing rude about it? Rather, it's a bit too formal. Because it has to be reviewed by that group of old men, so of course it has to be more formal. Well, I think there's no problem. Great, it's finally finished. Charlotte returned the parchment to Lan Ming. She quickly returned to the table and took out two slightly heavy seals, which were engraved with Yila's family crest and Lan Ming's unique crest respectively. She printed two clear seals on the lower right corner of the parchment. Mark. Charlotte, please go there. I don't want to step foot there. I see. Before leaving, Charlotte did not forget to give a warning. It's already bedtime, Your Highness. Okay, I already know it clearly. Lan Ming agreed while pushing Charlotte's back to the door. Also, you made an agreement with me that when there are only two of us, there is no need to say Princess Your Highness. Did you forget to call me? You should call me by my name properly. She whispered in Charlotte's ear. Good night then, Lan Ming. Only at this moment would the unsmiling Charlotte show the expression that Lan Ming wanted to see. Good night, Charlotte. Lan Ming smiled and sent the reluctant Xiaoluo out of the bedroom. The door to the room was closed by Charlotte, and Lan Ming lay down on the overly luxurious canopy bed. She did not turn off the chandelier in her bedroom, and the light became soft through the white window curtains. With a faint sense of expectation, Lan Ming's breathing gradually became steady. Finally, it was Charlotte who came back quietly to help her turn off the chandelier in the room.